I don't care what they did, he said,
as he wrapped me in his coat and took me away. And that sentence shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. I was shaking, barefoot in the dirt, convinced I was about to be dragged back to a place I swore I'd never return to, when this stranger stood between me and the people who claimed they owned me. Was I wrong for trusting him? Would you have done the same thing? I did, if a total stranger offered you freedom when everyone else said you didn't deserve it. It started months earlier. When I took a job I was desperate for and didn't ask enough questions. I'd just left a bad relationship, my savings were gone, and I needed somewhere quiet to disappear for a while. A family friend connected me to a remote ranch, said they needed help around the house and with paperwork, and promised room and board. At first it felt peaceful, almost healing. Wide open land, the sound of wind through dry grass, animals that didn't judge me. But slowly things shifted. They kept my phone for safekeeping. They told me going into town was unnecessary. Then it turned into chores I never agreed to, long days without breaks, and comments about how I owed them for taking me in. Every time I pushed back, they reminded me I had nowhere else to go. I started believing them. The night everything broke, there was yelling. I won't get into all of it, but I ran. I didn't even grab my shoes. I just ran into the dark, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would give me away. I hid near the fence line, crying, when headlights cut across the field. I thought it was them coming to drag me back. Instead, a truck stopped, and a man stepped out. He was older, weathered, clearly a rancher from the way he moved, calm but solid. He asked if I was hurt. I tried to explain through tears, barely making sense. Before I could finish, the people from the house came storming over, shouting about how I was unstable, how I'd stolen from them, how I was dangerous. That's when he took off his coat and put it around my shoulders. He didn't even look at them when he said it. I don't care what they did, he told them. She's coming with me. I remember gripping that coat like it was the only real thing left in the world. They threatened him. They said they'd call the police. He told them to go ahead. His voice never shook. Mine wouldn't stop. As we drove away, I kept waiting for him to change his mind. I asked why he was helping me. He said he'd seen enough over the years to recognize fear when it was real, and that no one deserved to be treated like property. He took me to his ranch, gave me a spare room, and let me sleep for nearly a full day. When I woke up, there was food on the table and a note saying I was safe. But even then I was terrified. Part of me kept thinking I'd made a mistake, that trusting a stranger was reckless, that maybe I really was the problem like they'd said. So that was the situation I was in, standing at a crossroads, between going back to what I knew and stepping into something completely unknown. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed, or would you have run back just to avoid the risk? What happened next still feels unreal. The people from the other ranch did call the police, but not for the reasons they claimed. When officers came, the rancher calmly told them everything I'd told him. He had security cameras near his property line that had caught part of the confrontation. I finally had the courage to tell my full story. The lies unraveled fast. Turns out I wasn't the first person they'd done this to. Investigation started. I was asked to give statements. It was exhausting and terrifying, but for the first time, someone believed me without conditions. In the aftermath, I stayed at the ranch longer than I planned. Not because I had to, but because I was allowed to choose. I helped out when I wanted to, got paid fairly, and slowly learned what it felt like to breathe again. The rancher never asked for anything in return. He just checked in, made sure I was okay, and reminded me that leaving was always an option. Eventually, I did leave on my own terms, with a little savings and a lot more confidence than I'd had before. Looking back, that night could have gone so differently. If he'd believed them instead of me, if I'd been too scared to accept help, I don't know where I'd be now. The biggest lesson I took from all of this is that sometimes survival means trusting your instincts, even when your fear is screaming at you to stay small. If you were on my side in this story, go ahead and like this video. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one, and please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I read every single one. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.